We do not believe that type 2 diabetes needs to exist in one single person ever. We believe it's a lifestyle, choice-driven disease process. Now, some people believe that they can effectively manage it, but they only know management. They don't know correction, reversal, and certain.
So oftentimes we just continually get distracted by the continual chatter that's in our minds, and slowing the mind down with a process of meditation can be very, very helpful.
Anger is a natural emotion.
It is.
The Bible says, be angry and sin not, or don't let the sun go down in your anger. This is translated like this in layman's terms. It's okay to be angry as long as your anger doesn't have you.
One of the greatest, most concerning statistics today is the rise and elevation, enormous rise and elevation of type 2 diabetes. This disease process, we do not believe needs to exist in one single person across the world. I'll say that one more time. We do not believe that type 2 diabetes needs to exist in one single person ever. We believe it's a lifestyle, choice-driven disease process. Now, some people believe that they can effectively manage it, but they only know management. They don't know correction, reversal, and certainly avoidance. So we're going to talk about this concept of type 2 diabetes. It's different than type 1. I'm going to talk about the difference of that right now. You think?
Well, certainly type 2 diabetes, when a patient walks into my office, I can pretty much tell whether or not they have dysmetabolism. And I'm very glad to see the American College of Osteopathic Internists. They now say if a person has one of these factors, you can pretty much guarantee that they're on the trajectory towards type 2 diabetes. Well, what are those factors? It's being overweight. It's having high triglycerides. It's having low HDL. It's having elevated liver functions. It's having any blood sugar issue, whether it's fasting, 3-month average, daily average, insulin resistance, panel, and score. So any one of those, if it's out of balance, a person is heading in the wrong direction. And oftentimes it just simply comes down to, okay, well, let's reevaluate what we're doing with our lifestyle. How many calories are we eating in a day? And where are we getting our macronutrients from? The majority of the time, type 2 diabetes is actually driven by this thing called high glycemic index carbohydrates. And well, what does that mean? It means that the amount of insulin that is produced by a carbohydrate is entirely too high. So that insulin, at the end of the day, creates this thing called insulin resistance, where the body becomes deaf to the voice of even being able to manage sugar anymore. And hence, here comes dysmetabolism, metabolic syndrome, and before we know it, type 2 diabetes.
So if we break that down, a person can consume macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, and fats. And a lot of people don't know this, but the proteins can convert to glucose as well.
Yes.
So it's carbohydrates and proteins convert to glucose. The pancreas has sensors on it that senses the glucose going up in the blood. That creates the source of insulin coming out of the pancreas, and then the insulin sort of communicates with the glucose and wants to escort the glucose out of our blood, because we could die like that, right? And it tries to put it into liver or muscle cells. And so I like to say insulin sort of knocks on the door of our cells and says, hey, I've got a package for you. But if the cells are already full, right, there's nowhere for it to go. And the cells say, no, thank you.
I'm full.
I don't have room. So that is a clear story about insulin, knock, knock, resistance. And then eventually the glucose that gets rejected sort of can get converted back to triglycerides, like you mentioned. And then those things get stored everywhere into fat tissue. That's why elevation of insulin, you've said many times, is a fat storage hormone.
So if too much insulin is on board, that means we're going to be in a fat storing state. So a lot of times the dietary management or the ways that we go about combating type 2 diabetes. Not every person can afford what's called a continuous glucose monitor, but that continuous glucose monitor tells you the response of every single type of sugar that's coming into your system. And everybody's body can be very, very different. If it's a simple sugar, like simply putting liquid creamer in your coffee, it can spike your blood sugar. If you're eating a lot of breads and grains, it can spike your blood sugar. So things that need to be pulled back are the excessive amounts of carbohydrates. The first thing to do is simply manage the load. How much are you taking in at a time? Try to take in 50 grams or less at any one sitting. That is step one. Understanding the load. That will decrease the amount of insulin that is actually produced. Then, after you eat, simply go for a walk and give your body the ability to burn off the blood sugar that is in the blood after you've just eaten that big meal.
I like that. And you know, we are not first line therapy medication kind of people, but let's say when you discover this, if you do it, medication is necessary for a short period of time. We don't want to shy away from that because that's like the train running off the tracks. We don't want it to go off the track. We want to stop it from going off the track. And sometimes there's a little time where medication can be used, such as a metformin for a period of time. But rest assured, we've seen it before. Even if a person has high blood sugar, has a high hemoglobin A1C, a high insulin resistance score that's out of sight, off the charts, even 99, I've seen those scores up there before on insulin resistance, which is the top, by the way. I've seen that thing get reversed in 3 to 4 months before, just by doing the things you're talking about.
Absolutely. And then, of course, last but not least is stop eating after 6 o'clock at night. If you have cravings and you feel like you need to eat, keep it to protein and fat. That's going to keep that sugar from going up. It's going to keep your body from producing insulin. Therefore, your body will get into a cleaning state during the night, and that is called autophagy. That's a very important place to be to reverse type 2 diabetes.
The amount of money, the amount of pain, the amount of heartache that this particular disease pathology is causing this country now is unacceptable. We need to do our part right now to make this disease process go away forever. And just take the tips we talked about today, just a few of them, and let's get it reversed. If you're out there and you're suffering from this before and don't know what to do or want to know what to do, you need to reach out to us at Sherwood.tv. We'll teach you, and it'll be a pleasure to see you get your type 2 diabetes reversed.
How to optimize the craziness in this world, understanding meditation and mindfulness.
And keys to turning that craziness into calmness up next.
Our Kingdom Candy with a K again. 2 flavors. We got salted
Delicious.
caramel and peanut butter. These are great. I mean, they're
kind of like a complete meal.
yeah, they're 200 calories. People want to know that all the time, and not that we're worried about calories, but these things have great ingredients. They're not sweetened with sugars. They don't have those false sugars or fake sugars, artificial
They've got
sugars.
fiber in them.
They do. It's interesting. Salted caramel crunch is our newest flavor. We'll come up with some other stuff at some point, but those can bridge the gap of that sweet tooth craving. They're sweetened with monk fruit, and that's really, if you know what that is, it's not going to raise blood sugar.
It's really only 2 grams of sugar. I refer to it as the sweet without the cheat.
Any of these things out here are designed to be money-saving, nutrition-giving, and life-enhancing. And this is a big deal. So you'll find out, like thousands of other people did, that these things will help you live healthy longer. Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you. It has a crunch and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
Child friendly. Exploring biohacking, bioharmonizing, biosynergizing, stacking, resilience, or anti-fragility.
start here. No gimmicks, just proven results.
Meditation and mindfulness. How does it affect health?
Well, it does, because when you think about the idea of meditation, we're talking about a calming of your spirit, or a calming of your nervous system. And the idea of mindfulness is looking at a situation, to me, without judgment, without self-judgment, and seeing really what you have, being aware of where you are, how you are, in a non-judgmental manner. That's the way you sort of solve problems. So mindfulness is really something that I think overall can mitigate the stress element a lot in people's lives.
Well, I've done a lot of training with meditation and even in the aspect or area of mindfulness. Meditation is actually a process of trying to clear the mind of cluttered thoughts or extra thinking. And it can be used through deep breathing exercises, or you call it a mantra, just saying one word over and over and over and over, and watching how quickly thoughts will come in. And thoughts are actually really distractions. So oftentimes we just continually get distracted by the continual chatter that's in our minds, and slowing the mind down with a process of meditation can be very, very helpful. In terms of mindfulness, this life is so extremely stressful. I mean, hustle and bustle, and I can't even drive home from work without feeling like I'm going to get run over. We're going so fast that we aren't even aware of what we're doing. And perhaps slowing down, we're going to experience more of life and the beauty that life has to offer. Even being mindful when we sit down to eat. We are mindful about chewing our food. We're mindful about who is at the table with us. And the experience becomes greater instead of this huge hurry that we're in.
Well, truly, the idea of mindfulness, we do move too fast, and we lose track of the day, and we lose track of time, and we're so unaware of it sometimes. We get on autopilot so much, you can drive from point A to point B on a road you are familiar with and not remember going from point A to point B. As far as a meditation thing, I've got one that I use every day, and when I do this, and I'll just read this real quick because it's something I do. It says, "Thank you, God, that you made me into a great man, husband, father, son, and friend. You made me a great leader, influencer, and healer. Therefore, I am focused, diligent, disciplined, and exemplary. I'm at peace, full of joy, exuding and living with supreme health, abounding in wisdom and overflowing in love. I hear your voice and follow your directions with a servant and warrior heart and mind." And again, whether I believe it or not, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I say it anyway because it can change things. It's those words create something in our body, and they create a calm there anyway.
So do you ever have those negative thoughts come in that just continue to barrage your mind?
Yeah, of course I do.
And then do you put that positive affirmation in there when those things are going crazy in your head?
Well, I have to. And if I don't, I choose not to. And if I choose not to, it doesn't help me much.
Yeah.
But even when I do, you got to force yourself to do it sometimes.
Well, how do you find that it changes the situation when you do that?
Well, I do know this from two perspectives. Number one, God's word talks about the power of life and death is in the tongue. I mean, you could speak life or speak death. That's true. Now, whether people believe it or not, it's confirmed from a scientific, physiologic standpoint, because when you speak, like, I am scared of, fill in the blank, right? or you say, I'm afraid of fill in the blank, the cells go into this cocoon-like mode. They retract. The cells of our body respond to that. And when they retract like that, they're in a fear-based mode. They don't have the freedom to do what they do until the threat is over. So for their own survival, they sort of go into that cocoon, or it's like a turtle with the head being tucked into the shell. When they're free, they're able to go to work and do their work for you. But that is created many times by what we speak out of our mind and what we hear from other people as well.
Yeah, so living mindfully oftentimes is going to slow us down a notch. And that can have a lot of positive physiological benefits in the areas of pain, in the areas of stress and anxiety, even in the areas of obesity or being overweight. Because if we're taking steps to be mindful about what we're doing, even with just having a snack, oftentimes somebody will pick up the bag of Doritos or popcorn or whatever, and instead of having a serving, we're so stressed or we're not mindful that we'll eat the whole bag. And then we end up with substance use disorders. That substance being food. It's the same as being addicted to alcohol. It's just a different nature or form of self-abuse or self-harm, if you will.
If we're not thinking about what we're doing, when we're doing it, why we're doing it, we're going to do it without thinking. And that can be something that is destructive. So the only way I know how to get out of that destructive thing that we do without thinking is to stop and think more through it. Now, what is this? Why is this? It just requires us coming back to the present. That's what it is. I mean, sometimes, I'll have people in the office that are just rattling on about past, whatever. And I'm like, okay, do you know what day it is? I'll ask them that question. They don't know. You know what time it is? And I make them tell me the time and date. And, that tends to draw them right back today.
To the present.
And that's an important thing.
Yeah, and that's the present. So taking actions of meditation where we're actually clearing our mind with that repetitive negative thought, clean it out. Or spending the time with mindfulness, staying present to the moment instead of being so hurried has lots of important physiologic benefit. Let's shine the spotlight on one of our star supplements.
The human body can make most of the types of fats it needs from other fats or raw materials, but not omega-3 fatty acids, also called omega-3 fats or N3 fats.
These are essential fats that the body must get from food.
Biomega 1000 provides a potent dose of omega-3 essential fatty acids sourced from a strategically placed fishing facility in the far South Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chile.
Each capsule delivers an impressive 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and the capsules also contain vitamin E. See the link below for a special offer, and remember, don't be fooled by cheap online knockoffs.
Introducing OK Movie Stream, your ticket to a world of cinematic classics and wonders, right from the heart of Oklahoma and the surrounding areas.
The Neals are moving to Oklahoma.
Dive into a world of captivating stories and extraordinary talent, all on OK Movie Stream.
Oh yeah, I did. You see, I gave you a crazy look because I
Choose the option that suits you best. Watch for free with commercials, binge watch your favorites for 3 days, or unlock ad-free streaming for just $10 a year. Join the OK Movie Stream community today and embark on a cinematic journey like never before.
Our flagship product is called Kingdom Fuel. Tell us a little bit about Kingdom Fuel and why it's so good.
We saw people struggling with the idea and concept of it's too expensive to eat healthy. So we thought, okay, that's the problem. Let's find a solution. So we found a solution for $5 or under per meal. And that represented the birth of the idea of Kingdom Fuel. So Kingdom Fuel is organic pea protein. It's got greens and reds in it. So this is the phytonutrients from green plants and red plants that we all talk about. Eat your vegetables, right? It's also got vitamins and minerals in it. So it's got a complete complex of that.
And it's got also soluble and insoluble fiber, which the difference between the two is profound. Soluble actually gathers moisture and makes you full, and the insoluble goes through the system and grabs things like damaged particles.
The body runs on nutrients, it doesn't run on medication. And Kingdom Fuel is a complete multivitamin and
Yep.
mineral. Let's talk a little bit about controlling anger to help your health. Now, we know anger is a very powerful emotion that can drive you to make positive changes. However, it is also a very powerful emotion that can be destructive to your health and to those closest around you. If anger goes on for a long, long period of time, boy, those things that can be observed in your health can be high blood pressure or high tension, headaches. It can lead to stomach upset or acid reflux, or it can even lead to anxiety or depression.
Well, we got to get a hold of it, right? Because, I mean, you mentioned at the top, anger is a natural emotion.
It is.
The Bible says, be angry and sin not, or don't let the sun go down in your anger. This translated like this into, layman's terms. It's okay to be angry as long as your anger doesn't have you. And then it's also important to not go to bed or close the day out if you're angry at someone, especially. It's okay to be angry about a situation sometimes because, like in today's world, there are people that are very frustrated with things. But when it progresses to anger, it can progress to control not just your emotions, but it can cause a counter effect on your health. And that's not what you want.
No, so the first thing we have to do is we have to learn to recognize whether or not anger is present.
Yeah.
And if anger really is present, then we have to think about ways to control it. If you recognize that it's there, perhaps the first thing to do would be to go walk around the block and take some deep breaths to calm that sympathetic nervous system or that fight or flight, because adrenaline is just rushing through your system. And that's what's causing all those negative side effects from high blood pressure, headaches, anxiety, and the like.
Yeah, this is what, remember our book, Fork Your Diet?
I do.
On the cover of
What a
that
great
book, you
book
guys
that
can see
is.
that. It says Stop Falling for the Frauds. Frauds is an acronym. And the acronym is fear, resentment, anger, unforgiveness, disappointment, and shame. So those frauds are all tied, sort of connected at the hip, if you will, with anger. And they sort of steal your identity. I mean, there's probably not anybody that's listening right now that hasn't either heard someone say this or said it themselves. I don't know who I am anymore, or because of this, I've lost my identity, or my anger has caused me to lose or forget who I am. Those type of things really do happen. We lose who we are when we allow anger or some of these other emotions to control us.
That's right. So once we identify that anger is there and we go out and take a walk around the block to figure out why are we angry and we get to the root of the problem, oftentimes it's a particular person that's giving us, it has pushed us over the edge. What are some tips that people can do when they identify that they're having difficulty dealing with a difficult person?
All right, so remember this. This is number one, and I do this a lot when I'm in the office talking to people. It's going to sound weird. Some of you might have been there, and you see me do this. I'll put my hands right here on my belly, just like this, and I will do what's called diaphragmatic breathing, which actually will slow your heart rate. And I try to keep my heart rate down when I'm talking to somebody in the 70s, low 70s. That's what I try to do as a max. So I'm actually watching it on my little watch here, but I'll put my hands on my belly and I'll do diaphragmatic breathing. What is that? I'm going to push the breath down. So when I inhale, my stomach comes out. My shoulders don't come up. And when I exhale,
Just how far does that stomach come out?
a long ways. If you're good at it, you can push that abdominal muscle out. You could even force yourself to have a quasi-looking beer belly by diaphragmatic breathing.
Heavens.
No, I'm just kidding about that. So you can push it out, push it in. So if you keep your hands here, and you can even do that at night if you want to help yourself sleep, you can put a book here and try to raise the book up and raise the book down. I guarantee you it will slow the heart rate down. It will slow you from a stress response to a non-stress response, and your ability to feel the anger will also go down. You might be a little agitated still, but your ability to sort of become full-blown angry will go down.
That's why going for a walk can be so helpful. Is walking makes you breathe a little harder, or not harder, or
Does.
breathe more than what you would be just sitting in a chair. So
Yeah.
breathing actually calms down that fight or flight, and it increases the rest and relax, or the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. So
Yep.
breathing is a good way. What about somebody finding an advocate or somebody that you can talk to about maybe learning to express your anger differently?
It's called a vent, right? Everybody needs to vent sometimes, and it's okay. And with that said, the greatest thing you can do, like I was reading a devotional just yesterday, I think, on venting, and it was tied to sort of God allowing us to vent to Him. Well, that's true. We can. If you want to yell at Him, you can. I'm sure He can take that. If you want to vent, He can take that too. But the greatest thing that we can do to that is be the person that people can vent to, or they can get heard. People want to get heard. So I think it goes down to having someone to be able to talk to bring a little bit of calm into your life. And I learned this in police work a lot too. When somebody was angry, if you'll lower your voice down a little bit in the middle of them talking loud, they will match you. But if you elevate your voice over them, they will match you. So you actually can control the conversation a little bit, even in your own life, by controlling the tempo of how you speak, and the level of how you speak, and the tone of how you speak. It's kind of called verbal judo, if you will, but it's actually verbally controlling a situation, and you can do that with yourself, or you can do it with other people.
Yeah, so anger is a normal emotion. It's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
We need to understand the triggers, what's triggering that anger so it doesn't become explosive and destructive. So we can control those long-term health effects that it may have: high blood pressure, anxiety,
Mm.
insomnia, bitterness, and the list goes on. Because oftentimes it's not necessarily what you're eating, it's what's eating you. And
Oh.
those tips about how to manage anger, you got to recognize that it's there. Go for a walk, change your breathing, change that sympathetic tone and
Mhm.
calm it down, and maybe even find somebody that you can confide in to help you walk through a difficult situation and maybe approach a difficult person differently.
Maybe look at it like this: ABCs. Admit you got it, admit you have it. Um, B, believe you can change it. And C, commit to do that, right? That's very important to think about, because anger can control you if you don't control it, correct?
Absolutely. And then in terms of supplementation, there's a couple things you can take to kind of calm the internal system. One is simple magnesium.
Yeah, that's what.
Magnesium kind of calms that internal fire, can calm the brain down, and so can GABA.
So there you go. There's some supplements, there's some tips for you to help you and all of us not be angry people, because we know anger is not good for the world when it controls the world. So we need to bring some calm. How about us make a commitment to be a little more calm?
Exploring biohacking, bioharmonizing, biosynergizing, stacking, resilience, or anti-fragility.
Start here. No gimmicks, just proven results.